Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Mendte. Gun sales during the pandemic have skyrocketed, but it's difficult to be a gun owner in states like New Jersey with strict gun laws. Now there is a national movement to change those laws. Scott Bach, Executive Director of the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs, is part of that movement.
All right, Scott, as always, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Tell us what's in the courts right now when it comes to gun rights in New Jersey.
Well, the most critical thing right now is a third and hopefully final attempt to set New Jersey's carry laws right with the rest of the country. My organization just filed a new lawsuit challenging New Jersey's blatantly unconstitutional carry laws, which make it impossible for the average citizen to have a firearm with them outside the home for self-defense. And so that's one of several cases pending in New Jersey, but there are multiple cases pending in the United States. And, you know, there's one in New York State that actually is ahead of all of them and is likely to be heard. So this is part of a national movement on this foundational part of the Second Amendment. It's one of the most fundamental parts of Second Amendment issues.
And you say it's a national movement. There's all these groups across the country that are filing suit. In New York, you mentioned. Is the hope that one or all of those cases amalgamate and then go to the Supreme Court?
Well, yes, and they're all at different stages. So, you know, the case we just filed is at the latter stage. There's a case, the New York State case is already deep into the hopper. But yes, the idea is sooner or later, the Supreme Court can't duck this issue forever. My organization's tried, this is our third attempt in like 10 years to get the Supreme Court to hear this issue. I mean, the Second Amendment protects the right to bear arms in addition to keeping them. How can the Supreme Court refuse to hear appeals on bearing arms? And they've done that. And so, this is our hope that this will be the last time we have to actually keep asking for a ruling to come from them.
It's interesting. You just brought up a point I was going to make about you saying it was blatantly unconstitutional, because if it's blatantly unconstitutional, you would think that the Supreme Court would have dealt with this before then. Doesn't that show you that it may not be blatantly constitutional, that they see that there is good reason for the states to do this, or at least the right of the states to do this?
That's one conclusion. The other conclusion is that there are partisans on the Supreme Court who have just refused to take this issue because it's unpopular or they don't want. Yeah, listen, here's why it's unconstitutional. All right. We already have the right to keep and bear arms, but in New Jersey, it imposes its own layer of bureaucracy, and it's a layer of bureaucracy that is rarely, if ever, exercised. You have to show something, you have to demonstrate something called justifiable need, which on its face sounds reasonable, but what it means and has been interpreted to mean is you have to prove actual threats or actual physical harm. I like to say by the time you would qualify for the permit in New Jersey, you're already dead. And we have in our prior cases, for example, we had a civilian employee of the FBI as a plaintiff. Civilian employees don't carry firearms. And, he was involved in matters where he felt that he needed a firearm. He was turned down. We had a gentleman who was kidnapped twice in a case of mistaken identity and aided in the capture of the perpetrators. He was an obvious mark, an obvious target, someone obviously at risk. New Jersey court said, sorry, you don't have justifiable need. The point is, in New Jersey, we use what is supposed to be a regulatory scheme. It's being used as a block. And that's why it's unconstitutional. It's extreme. It's outrageous the way New Jersey does it. And it's going to fall. It's just a question of how long that's going to take.
You have this loosely connected group of, or maybe maybe I'm giving you not enough credit. Maybe you're very well organized and is very well connected across the country, group of gun rights organizations that are joining together in hopes of getting to the Supreme Court and getting a ruling on this. Is this new push because of a change in the court?
Well, first, it's not a new push. We've been doing this for over 10 years, but
this one's new.
But this one is new, but we do think the change in the court may change the dynamics finally. We won't know for sure. Okay. I mean, we thought that last time, But we do think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about the future of Second Amendment cases. We also, my organization has a case pending that's been pending for several years, challenging New Jersey's magazine limits. Okay, firearms magazine limits. A few years ago, it went from 15 to 10, and property that was legal, yesterday became illegal today, and you could go to jail for up to 10 years for it. So, listen, we think right now the courts are ripe, and we're expecting quite a bit of Second Amendment litigation to come in the next several years. We will know for sure when there's movement on these very ripe cases, right to carry, magazine bans. We think the High Court's going to take those cases, and it will signal to the other groups around the country whether the time is ripe for everything else that follows it.
Is there some concern because, the gun laws can be state to state, as you know, in New Jersey, because there's some of the strictest in the country, is that a ruling will not have a national effect. The ruling will be specific to an individual state, so that if they rule in the New York case first, that may not affect you. You still have to go through the process.
That is a possibility, and it's why we went to the trouble to file a case in New Jersey. But if the Supreme Court does its job, it will articulate a rule for the whole country, okay? And we think that the current composition of the Supreme Court is itching to do just that. We're hoping for a sweeping ruling that affects everywhere, but just in case there's not, we have our case to do any needed cleanup that might be necessary.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, sir. Thanks for your time.
Great to be back, and thank you.
Scott Bach, Executive Director of the New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs Association. When we come right back, winter is coming and JCP&L is getting ready for it. We'll talk about their efforts next.